All right, guys, so let's cover the Bill of Rights. We covered Articles 1 through 3, legislative, executive, judicial branches. Now let's take a look at the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are your first 10 amendments as a U.S. citizen. These are guaranteed to you by the Constitution, regardless of gender, regardless of race or religious practices. So, the purpose of the Bill of Rights is to ensure that you, as a U.S. citizen, are protected from the federal government. That was the original idea behind it. These rights guarantee you certain things that the government cannot take away. That's the real purpose behind it. We talked about James Madison and his feelings behind it. We talked about Thomas Jefferson and his feelings behind it, but the overall purpose really is to protect you from the federal government and to guarantee you certain liberties as a citizen in a civil society. That's a key part, and we'll get back to that in a few moments. The first 10 amendments, okay, are the most important thing to a peaceful society, because imagine a society without a Bill of Rights. Okay, think about that. You don't have the freedom of speech. You don't have freedom of religion. Okay, you don't have any of these other rights that are guaranteed to you by the U.S. Constitution. So think about that. And that's why they're in place, is to guarantee a peaceful society. We see a lot of times in society where these things are challenged, again, which we'll talk about in class. So let's take a look at the first 10 amendments. All right, try to at least jot down a few notes about this. And I'll go through them briefly. We'll go through them a little bit more in depth in class, but the purpose here is just to get an understanding of what those first 10 are. So let's start with the First Amendment. The First Amendment are your basic religious and political freedoms. So this is the one we see all the time, challenged by citizens. Right to free speech, protest, peaceful assembly, freedom of religion. Okay, this amendment protects you and guarantees you the right to practice your religion, to speak your mind without being persecuted. Now, there are limitations on it. Okay, don't believe that you can say absolutely anything you want without some sort of repercussion. You can say what you want, but don't be guaranteed that people are not going to be angry about what you were saying. So that's where that limitation is. Okay, for example, you can't go into an airplane and yell bomb. We talked about that in class. Okay, that is going to get you in trouble. Is it freedom of speech? Yes. But at the same time, it's in an area and a situation where you can get yourself in trouble. So there are limitations on it. So that's your First Amendment. Okay, also guaranteeing freedom of religion. You want to practice whatever religion you want? Great, enjoy it. Okay, you cannot be persecuted for doing it. Okay, that is guaranteed by that First Amendment. So let's take a look at the Second Amendment. Right to bear arms. Again, a very, not necessarily controversial, but a hot topic in the past few years, dealing with the right of a citizen to own a weapon. Now, this amendment was originally instituted in order for citizens to protect themselves from Native Americans, from the British, obviously, and to hunt and provide and be self-sufficient. This amendment was left in, and it guarantees citizens of legal age, which is usually 18, to own a weapon. Now, each state has various restrictions on what types of weapons you may own, but this amendment guarantees you the right to actually own that weapon. It also talks about a well-regulated militia, which is not necessary for today's standards because we do have the military and National Guard. The NRA, National Rifle Association, is a big proponent of the Second Amendment, and it's usually a very hot topic when they come into this story. Your Third Amendment deals with quartering of soldiers in your home. We talked about this pre-revolution with the Quartering Act instituted by the British government when they wanted to house British soldiers in the homes of the colonists because they wanted to keep an eye on them, and they didn't have the money to build any barracks for them. This guarantees that in a time of peace, no soldiers can be quartered in your homes unless a special, I guess we could say, permission from the government and or the homeowner to have a soldier housed in there is given. But that's usually not the case. We have plenty of space for soldiers to stay in various states, but this is just to protect the citizens from having soldiers just knock on their door and hang out. Your Fourth Amendment deals with search and seizure. Another hot topic we dealt with in class in terms of locker searches. Um, the Fourth Amendment guarantees you the right to privacy. Okay, the Fourth Amendment, it ensures that a cop just can't come walking down the street and search your home. Okay, they have to have, and they use the language probable cause in order to do that. Now, probable cause is a really gray area, which we can talk about in class because it's a little bit too detailed and complex for this. But it really guarantees you the right to privacy. So you can be walking down the street with your backpack on, okay, and if a police officer says, "Excuse me, I need to search your backpack," you have every right and protected by the Constitution to say no. Okay, it is your personal property, and unless they have a warrant or probable cause to do so, or you give them permission, because that's another way to gain access, then they can't search it. Okay, that's something we'll talk about again in class. The Fifth Amendment, rights in a criminal case. Before I go into that, the Fifth, Sixth, and Seventh Amendments can be somewhat confusing, so please make sure you get the titles down, and I'll explain them a little bit further. So the Fifth Amendment, rights in criminal cases. This deals with the right of a citizen to have not necessarily fair trial, because the other ones deal with fair trials. This one ensures that you have the ability to have a grand jury hearing before it goes to trial. We briefly talked about grand jury hearings dealing with the situation down in Ferguson. It also guarantees you, as a citizen, that you cannot be charged with the same exact crime twice, also known as double jeopardy. The Sixth Amendment, rights to a fair trial. This guarantees you the right to a public trial, a speedy public trial, dealing with, you can't be sitting in jail for years and then all of a sudden they go, okay, let's start the process of putting you on trial. Okay, you have the right to a speedy public trial with, and the next amendment deals with jury, but a public trial, so there can't be any misconception about what's going on. So it's a very public trial, and it's speedy. That's the key word for that Sixth Amendment. The Seventh Amendment deals with rights in civil cases. That guarantees you as a citizen the right to a trial by jury of your peers. So you cannot just have you, a lawyer, and a judge, and the judge rules on you. That's different. Okay, this is a public trial. This is a trial by jury. Okay, this guarantees you the right to that. Okay, it cannot be restricted via the Seventh Amendment. The Eighth Amendment deals with bails, fines, and punishments. Basically, I'm not going to go too much into depth on this. You can't be excessively punished for your crime. So, for example, if you shoplift a candy bar, you're not going to jail for 30 years. Okay, there are restrictions on the types of punishments that can be handed down. So it just deals with excessive fines and punishments. Amendment 9 deals with the rights retained by the people. This ensures that any other laws or amendments cannot restrict you as a citizen in terms of your rights, and then they cannot take rights away. There are no other amendments or rights that can take your rights as a citizen away. That's basically what it deals with. And the 10th. The 10th Amendment deals with, basically, it kind of ties up loose ends. The 10th Amendment is stating that any rights that aren't given to the federal government by the U.S. Constitution and not restricted to the states automatically become the rights of the states. Again, let me repeat that. This amendment ensures that any rights not given to the federal government by the Constitution automatically become the rights of the people and the states. So it just makes sure that the federal government can't assume powers. That's a term we'll use again in class. Okay, so hopefully you got down some notes on the 10 amendments. Just a couple other things that we will touch on in class. Each amendment is extremely important. Each amendment has its history behind it, but as a country, they're very important. As a citizen, you should understand each one. And the more you know about the Constitution and your basic rights as a citizen, the better off you're going to be, and the more protected you're really going to be as a citizen. So it's really important to understand those. Not in great detail, just understand the basics of each one. One question that we're going to talk about in class is how far can you restrict natural liberty in society. And what we mean by that is these amendments, yes, protect you, but are they really protecting you? Okay, is it really for the general good of society that we have to have these amendments, or are they necessarily protecting the government against you? And that's something we'll look at in class. And lastly, who do the Bill of Rights really protect? Think about that. Do they protect you? Do they protect the government from you? Or do they protect you from the government? Think about the amendments. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I want you to be aware of the Bill of Rights, and I want you to be aware of how the government looks at it and how the people look at it. Because it's extremely important for you to understand how these amendments actually affect you in society. Because we see it all the time on the news. So I want you to be very keenly aware of these amendments. So think about that again. Who do the Bill of Rights really protect? Are they protecting you against the government, or the government from you? Okay, and we'll take a look at this tomorrow in class. We'll take a little bit more in-depth look at the Bill of Rights, and you'll actually have an opportunity to kind of debate the importance of these various amendments. All right, guys, if you need to rewind it, watch it again. I'll see you in class.